For a lot of people, being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia is a very doom and gloom experience, but it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of life to be lived from the time you're diagnosed until you end up dying, and you could either die with this disease or you could die from it. So I want you to join me for this week's episode where I'm talking to a really dynamic care pair. Their names are Dangle and Dot, and they're going to share their lived experience of not only from the person who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease and then 4 years later diagnosed with a mild cognitive impairment, and their care partner. So they have a lot of positive things to share, and I hope you'll tune in so that you can learn more. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the power of positivity in Alzheimer's disease, and I am super duper excited to have Nancy and Kat here, also known as Dangle and Dot. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Hello.
So before we get started, maybe you can both introduce yourselves.
Well, we are Dangle and Dot, and we're daring to do dementia differently. And I'm the Dangle part of Dangle and Dot. I was diagnosed in 2013 with early onset Alzheimer's, and then in 2017 with mild cognitive impairment. I'm here to say that a diagnosis is not the end, but it is a beginning. And we want to talk about the new beginning in your life. Yes, and I am the Dot, because we'll talk about these earrings. I have been a family care partner for people living with dementia my entire life. Most of it I didn't realize I was helping, but I have lost actually 7 family members to forms of dementia, and I'm a care partner now for my brother who has cognitive changes that I think are beautiful, and also I'm caring for my mom now who's on hospice. And so together, we're kind of coming together to take a different look at dementia and the ways we can approach it, to kind of help change our thoughts and our actions, actually. It's right here around this disease. Yes, it's up to us, and we can do it. And we'd like to share with you.
Yes, and that's what I'm excited about, and we have so much to talk about. And I think that sharing your stories is going to be important. So maybe, Nancy, let's talk a little bit about kind of your thoughts about brain health and your diagnosis, kind of your own role in your health, and also about what you've told me about the power of, wording, the power of your own thinking. So maybe just tell me a little bit more about those things, and then I have some other questions to ask you, Kat.
Okay. I got diagnosed. My daughter at the door of the neurologist's office said, "Mom, why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. After all, you're 69 years old." And I said, "Whoa." I said, we do have to do this. And so my dad passed in 2002 from Alzheimer's. So I went in early. I believe in, and because of my experience, I believe in early diagnosis. So this doctor said, "You have early onset Alzheimer's," and sent me away with a prescription pad. And all I could think about was, wow, what now? And all of a sudden, words from heaven above came to me at 3 to 5 a.m. every single morning. Words just plummeting down. And I had a pen, and I was writing. And for those out there that journal, I'm talking to you. Those words were my power to understand that the sky above was talking to me, and it answered a lot of questions that I had. And that was the beginning. I have since written 3 books. They're poetry, an exploration of Alzheimer's through poetry. And I've turned it around. I started helping other people, which helps me It's over. And we met. Yes. And Melissa, I'd just like to add that the cognitive test that she had to take when she got her diagnosis, there's, a few words that they ask you to remember at the beginning of the assessment that she could not remember at the end of the assessment. Guess what? They're the name of my book. That's the title of her book, Blue River Apple.
Okay. They do change from place to place, because I was like apple, copper, penny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is for Blue River Apple. And there we go.
So that's neat. So I really think, our first main point here today is about the power of early diagnosis. And I love that you kind of took control, of your own health. And, you obviously have a very positive outlook. And Kat, as Nancy's friend, talk to us about what you observed kind of as she was, either before, if you were friends after diagnosis or before, and kind of what you've seen happen in her life since then.
Right. So Nancy and I were not friends at that time, but actually I had first come across Nancy when she was public speaking about her diagnosis. And it was so powerful to me to hear this woman up on stage who's been diagnosed and give her story that, she had to quit her job. She had to change her life once this diagnosis was just handed to her in a mere 25 minutes and nothing we can do. So sorry. Writing this poetry came to her immediately. And it really journals all those hard feelings of loss and change brilliantly. And that she had enough, pizzazz, as you'll know, to put it into something that others maybe could understand what it feels like to be diagnosed with this. So I think it's really a healthy way to process, getting a diagnosis. And then, by the way, she changed her lifestyle. She had to look at herself in the mirror and say, hey, I need to exercise. I need to change my diet. I need to do these brain health things so I can help myself.
Yeah. And I really like hearing, from both of you, before we started talking about doing the podcast and watching your Instagram reels and the videos that you have out there, from a clinical and a clinician's perspective, people will come in with their families, we do all the tests and then eventually get to a point, because, any form of cognitive impairment is a diagnosis of exclusion, which means we have had to rule everything else out. But ultimately, there is that final 25, and you're lucky you got 25 minutes. There's ultimately that kind of visit where the diagnosis is confirmed. And then people are like, so what do we do next? And, I think that there are a lot of things that you can do. And I think what you're talking about is kind of this power of an early diagnosis, having the time to make the adjustments to your lifestyle, to make your arrangements. But then it's been 13 years. I think a lot of people think, well, I've got diagnosed, I'm going to die tomorrow, or I'm going to be in a nursing home tomorrow.
Right.
And so that's actually not what has happened to you. And I think that you are now talking, and I want us to talk about the second most powerful thing is this power of reframing this tragedy narrative. Again, people don't understand the disease. I love that you're talking about it and sharing your story, because so often we don't hear the voice of a person diagnosed or their care partner. Right. We know they're out there. We know they need help. We know they need resources. And that's actually why I do this podcast, is to try to help to guide people about here's what you do next. So let's talk about the positive side of Alzheimer's disease and what you obviously both have discovered.
Well, I think when you look at it and you look at, if I look back on myself, I took it, and don't know why, I just took it as rather a challenge and not a defeat. And I didn't know much about it, even though my father had it. But what I knew was that I saw people out there as I traveled through the uncharted waters. But there was just something, I had this much difference from them. I see them, I'm learning about them, but I'm not out there. And I just kept going. When I don't know what I'm doing, I pull up my big girl panties and say, okay, you can do this, do it. And I found myself saying yes when I thought, later I thought, what did I say yes for? But it is what has got me here. And thankfully, everybody around me, the doctors and Kat, and it's a powerful thing to not fear it. Because if you can turn around, right? If you can turn around and look at it and say, I need a little help here, because I'm not going to go over there.
And I think a big secret to her success, if you will, and Melissa, you're doing such a great job on educating people. She didn't stop with that first diagnosis and the first doctor. She went around and interviewed and explored other opinions until she was lucky enough. She bumped into specialists, right, that really believed in person-centered approaches to care. Right. And really wanted to listen to Nancy's preferences.
What a gift.
Right.
What a gift to have eye-to-eye contact, knee to knee. You know, you could touch him. It wasn't somebody that was standing at the door ready to run out. And it was, and it just, all the difference in the world. He cared. He cared how I felt. And I would go to her and say, you know, I'm thinking this, and everybody's saying take this med, or everybody's saying do this, and you know, and we would talk about it. Now, if he had ever said to me, do X, and it wasn't what I wanted to do, I would, and he would, I would have said no, and he would have said okay.
Right.
I think it's important to choose the doctor. You're worthy. If you did, you know. So I did go to 4 different. The last one was an Ayurvedic practitioner, and they all gave me the same answer. So I had to just kind of adjust myself, grab those words from heaven above, and say, "Okay, here we are."
Right. Yeah. And how, you know, such a devastating diagnosis in a way for a lot of people, right? To hear these words, quit your job, friends kind of disappeared on Nancy. You know, relationships shift really quickly in this scenario.
Not their fault.
No, it's sort of the stigma again.
The stigma that comes with it. They don't know what to say or how to say it.
Yeah. And they must not understand that Alzheimer's disease is not contagious. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and, you know, it could be about the fact that they just don't know that, or their own fears are the reason that they kind of pull back. You know, and that's unfortunate for both people, because look at you. I mean,
And really, that's why we've come together to show this is kind of dementia too, even in the role as a caregiver, which is very stressful and a difficult, you know, type of role to be in. But it's taught me so much. And to be honest, you know, we really have discovered the concept of care partnering. And when you reframe even just that word a little, you realize your loved one has something to give back to you, some part of you, maybe a new skill that you didn't even realize you had because you've become a care partner.
which brings us to our third point of the power in the care pair. So let's talk a little bit about how you two met and how you became Dangle and Dot, and what Dangle and Dot means.
We stumbled into each other, and we kept bumping into each other at different functions and speaking engagements. And one thing led to another. Every time I went to Cleveland Clinic, we would see one another and sit down and have a talk. One day I walked in and I said, I am frustrated. I have lost one earring out of how many earrings I have. And so today I'm wearing this, and today I'm wearing this. And from that, we decided, wow, it's a silent tribute to those that cannot speak for themselves, that you have a Dangle, that would be me, and you have a Dot, care
Care partner.
Yes.
But they're unique, right? It symbolizes that they're different people. But somehow they have to go together. And it was Nancy's really her marketing skills and her entrepreneurship really that came with the hands on the ears. Kat, we have to do something. We have to talk about this in a different way, right? Bring out, and massage the fear of it all, and remember that we can have fun
Yes.
on this journey.
Laughing is
And that's part of it, right? It's part of being, it is.
Yes. So as you explain that story to me, it reminds me of the geriatrician that I work with always referred to people as flitterers and focusers.
Mm.
And the dangle is the flitterer who might be over here, and then you have the person that has to be focused and put the puncture, the period at the end of the sentence. But
wise of you to know.
But the other piece of that too is, in having this conversation and thinking about how people react to being told the news. I was actually stuck in the Charlotte airport a couple of weeks ago, and everybody there was talking about how they were going to try to get home. Should they rent a car? Should they do this? And this lady standing in line next to me at the Starbucks at like 5:30 in the morning, she said, yeah, well, I won't be able to rent a car because I have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease and I can't drive anymore. And I actually never had anyone in my entire life actually say that out loud. And I was just like, wow, she just said that. And then I didn't really know what to do. And I'm like, you do this for a living? I was like, well, it wasn't I continued to talk to her, but I was like, she wasn't having a problem. I didn't need to solve anything. It was just information, just like somebody saying I have ADHD. And I thought, well, just like you would tell somebody you have ADHD, I'm a flitterer. I take this medication to help me focus. So I think that it should be something that you do just share with people. And it's just okay, well, you're still my bud,
Yep.
But it is part of and I want you guys to come back on for us to continue to have this conversation, because I do think it's important to change that narrative and to give people the skills of okay, so if your family member says that to you, we could do a whole episode about delivering the news, talking to your family, so we're going to do all of those things. But today we're talking about the power of an early diagnosis, the power in reframing kind of this tragedy narrative, and the power of this care peer. So let's talk a little bit about being a care peer.
Yes.
You found each other. You probably didn't sit down and go, hey, you want to be my friend and my care peer?
No. Well, I guess, coming from the two perspectives, and friendships, I, even in this entrepreneurial trying to talk about it, I learned so much from her as a partner, right? How can I redo something? How can I think of it in a different way that supports her, and it sets her up for success, right? And it just makes me more creative to respond rather than a reaction, of simply, oh, well, I'll take care of that. And, the problem with the caregiver, you want to take over a lot of the times.
And they can take over too much.
And we can take over too much. My brother saluted me one day to let me know I had crossed over too many lines in my caregiving, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe I should let him do something on his own.
Yeah. And I do think having a sense of humor through it. I helped my mom with my grandmother who had mild Alzheimer's for several years before she passed away. And, not everyone's as fortunate as you, in the fact that they, you have pretty much been stable. So that's the other hard part about this is from the diagnosis, you don't really know which way it's going to go. But, I think there's a reason we have a past and a future and a present. And today is the present, and we need to live in that moment and do what we can do. So let's talk about some of the things that you ladies are doing. Obviously, you're starting a business.
We are.
So let's talk about that.
What do you
About? Well, who said it had to be an ending? A diagnosis had to be an ending, right? We're working through it together to show people that, hey, if you have the inclination to do something, just because you've got a diagnosis should not stop you.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to find someone that's interested in doing it with you. I wouldn't do it on my own.
Well, that's true if you have a normal brain.
That's right.
That's always better. There's strength in numbers.
There's strength, and you need support. And I come from a healthcare background, pharmacist, worked at the FDA, worked in Alzheimer's research for the last 10 years, and here I am. Okay, why don't you start a business while you're caregiving to two people at your home? So it is sort of one of those, are you up for the challenge? Right. And it's interesting even that people want to immediately say, oh, well, you're a nonprofit because you're in dementia. But how about we're a social enterprise that we are looking at ourselves as maybe going to create something new for people? Maybe we create a new business model.
And have it be a template for people to make it easier for them, because what stops us, quite honestly, is knowing how and where and what to do and having the backing. And so if you have those things, and so many people do, if you got something you want to do, speak up, because it keeps you going. It keeps me going. And I'm an average person. I don't have a lot of letters behind my name. RLE is what I've used for a long, long time. And how I got that is I went to lunch one time 100 years ago, and this lady had a business card. I'd never paid attention to the letters after names. And I said to her, oh my gosh, I said, what does that I don't know why I asked. I said, what does that RLE mean? And she says, I'm so glad you asked. It means real life experiences. I said, you are my kind of lady.
Oh, well, but in this kind of concept of exploring, I do rely on Nancy's past, right? And this is a good care partner skill. What did Nancy do in her professional career that we could bring forward now, right? And she was great in sales, as you can probably tell, right? Great marketing, not afraid to go up to people. So she's a great social networker. We go to, these types of events around town. So she can stay social. She can keep talking using her verbal skills. Behind me, I'm kind of like, well, this can help her. These are activities that set her up for success. Mm-hmm. And then care partnering, the reward of seeing her happy, seeing her feeling that sense of, I've got this. It's caregiver magic.
Yeah, it's a warm and fuzzy on both sides, and learning process, right? And so instead of feelings and for this side, and I'm no expert, I just know Nancy pretty well. It's sometimes you feel like your toes have been pinched, or somebody stepped on your foot. They don't mean to, but the way they say it or what they say it is and the tone they use matters. Yeah. And that's a simple thing to take hold of and say, okay, I will try something different. And it's just, and our feelings get hurt probably more often. And so it's a matter of slowing down and getting to know what you're up against, and the fast forward to, wow, this may not be as bad as I thought it was going to do.
Mm-hmm. And what I hear, and when you guys are talking about this, is there's still reciprocity within the relationship. We expect reciprocity with all of our relationships, but just because someone's been diagnosed doesn't mean that goes away. In fact, there can be reciprocity within your relationship all the way to the end, just because, and with this disease, you will either die with it or you will die from it. because none of us is guaranteed tomorrow, which is why I'm saying, like, stay in the present moment. But the other thing that I hear is talking about strength-based person-centered care. And, I've done several episodes about, looking for what the person can still do. And the way I actually describe Alzheimer's disease is, as a caregiver, think about a donut. And most people, describe a donut. It's round, it's got a hole in the middle. Maybe they talk about the glaze, or it's, delicious, it's sweet. But in dementia care, as a caregiver or care partner, or a care pair, focusing on the donut is what you should focus on, and not the whole.
Not the whole. That's a really great analogy. Yeah, yeah, Melissa, that's
Thank
really,
you.
that is where it's all about.
Yeah, Dangle, Dot, and donuts. In fact, you could actually start serving donuts at your Dangle and Dot pink chair chit chats.
That's
That
right.
kind of blows the healthy part away.
I know. We can try to help.
Well, maybe you could just have one, and it could be a stage prop, and be like, "Look at this donut. Tell me what you see."
There you go.
Yes.
It does make the point. Focus on the positive.
Positive. And we, at our Dangle and Dot pink chair chit chats, we do go around to active adult communities, even dementia communities, to bring this positivity, or just a little different look at the same subject again. Sometimes we have to take a second look at how we, in the present moment, could approach what's in front of us. And we bring these director chairs because we want to emphasize, let's be the director of our own experience with dementia.
Because they're all different. The experiences are all different.
Yes. Yeah, I always say, if you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person with dementia.
But not everybody knows that, right? They just, the stigma pile just piles, just gets fuller and fuller, because there's not enough enticement to say, hey, I can do that. So what we do when we get together is we laugh a lot and we talk real stuff.
Right.
And yet we're laughing and telling stories.
Yeah. And our social media too really wants to show that this is just not all gloss that we've had, although we're fun and bubbly, it has come from hard times, challenges. For me, watching 7 family members really decline rapidly and not know what to do, watching my aunts suffer their own health consequences. Or some of these stories, we want to kind of learn how to, turn around, and how do we make it better? And providing great education, Melissa, I think it's
I think you're very valuable.
Such a wonderful thing to do, because it's so complicated and complex when we pull back the veil of what is dementia.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I mean, it's true. Life can be challenging, but you can still have a positive outlook, So that is true no matter how old you are, no matter how well your brain functions, no matter how well your body functions. And I've even talked about, you have the brains and the brawn. So, if you have a married couple and one has the brains and one has the brawn, they can actually still live at home together. It's called splitting. But if they both lose their brains, or they both lose their brawn, it's over. We're going to have to find, an alternate arrangement. So, well, thank you guys for being here. And before we go, I want you to tell people how they can find you, follow you, and hire you to do your speaking gigs and any other things that you're up to.
Well, we appreciate that. Yes. Where can they find us?
They can dangledot.com on our website, where we do have the books available, and soon earrings will be available. And they have some of the wisdoms that we will run our lives by and want to share with you. So we hope that you'll take them and maybe like us along the way.
Yes, and we're on Instagram. That's Dangle and then a period dot Instagram. We didn't get our whole name right. The
But
Facebook.
That's a good point of clarification. It's Dangle and Dot, but it's Dangle period dot to the
On
dot.
Instagram.
There's still a dot in there. So yeah, I love that.
It gets a little mouthy, I know, so we all have to try to put that down in the show notes. And then, yeah, dangle.oneword.com. And then for the website. And we're on YouTube.
It's actually a neurotist.
This is a neuro.
And we want you to pass.
We want you to pass this test. We believe it. Notes.
And they have a rewind button too, so they can.
Oh,
there's a
there-
button there, the show notes. We'll give them all the compensatory strategies as well.
We
Uh,
like it.
Yes. And then, yeah, we on our website, someone can contact us if they're interested in having a pink chair chit chat with Dangle and Dot. We like to fluff up, pillows and stuff in people's lives living with dementia.
Look at it a little bit different. Perception is everything.
That is really true. And then what is the name of your YouTube channel?
Dangle and Dot, which is ampersand, but it's at Dangle Dot 5069.
Well, I appreciate you both being
Sure.
with me today.
Yes, we
I
appreciate it.
really hope you will come back. I'd love to have more conversations with you. I think that your experience and your outlook is exactly the same message that I want to share with people, that while it can be hard, there's our bright spots along the way. And so it's like I tell my son, in fact, we just had this conversation the other day, and whatever you focus on gets bigger. And so if you focus on what the person can still do, then that's going to get bigger.
Right. And so that's what we want to do, shine the light on the other
Possible.
possibilities. Yes.
Yeah.
How we can magnify what is working.
Yeah.
And still, the not so fun part.
Yeah.
And
How to get through that.
Yeah,
Yeah. And not get into this pattern of stinking thinking.
right.
You can have something bad happen, but we don't have to ruminate on that one negative thing. Let's think about the 3 positive things that happened that day and take one day at a time and just do your best every day.
Beautiful.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for being here. And I look forward to having you back very, very soon.
Yes,
you.
yes. Thank you.